Welcome to episode 379 of the DFO Rundown, presented by Bet365. Download the app, use the promo code NATION to get on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Jason Gregor, alongside Frank Saravalli. We've got lots of playoff talk to get to, and we will. There's lots of series to drill down on, but we're going to start, of course, with the big news, and the coaching carousel is in full spin right now as Mike Sullivan is out. He's got 2 years left on his deal. It's a mutual agreement. Essentially, he gets paid until he gets hired somewhere else, and someone else is going to pay him, and whatever the difference is, maybe Pittsburgh eats it, but he'll probably get paid just as much, if not more.
Unless there was a buyout.
Deal. Yeah. Now, I guess they could buy him out too, but, if it's a mutual one, Frank, usually there's not a buyout, right? Usually it's like, because the guy's going to get a deal.
If I'm Mike Sullivan and I understand the power that I have as a free agent, I mean, I guess you could be like, you know what? I'll just work somewhere else. But what happens if somewhere else doesn't want to pay him as much as the Penguins are paying him? I'm saying to the Penguins, you want to get rid of me? That's fine. But we can, you can buy me out, and then I can double dip, even if I get a third or half of what was remaining on my deal, and I can double dip on the next one.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like a normal NHL player buyout. Why would it be different?
Well, I don't even know I don't know if it's that much, but either way, this isn't a massive surprise. This is kind of being chatting about
We've mentioned it on this podcast. If you go back 5 or 6 episodes when we've talked about all the different potential vacancies, I actually said in quotes, you can find it, will Mike Sullivan and the Penguins part ways? Thinking that it's in both of their best interests to do so. Kyle Dubas is going to want his own guy. Yeah. Mike Sullivan, the Penguins are going down, backwards, if not sideways. And you've got an incredible opportunity here with some marquee franchises and openings to go do something different.
Yeah, so let's look. Just a reminder for everybody, it is the offseason. You're focused on the playoffs. But here's the teams now. There's 7 vacancies and 2 unknowns right now. So in the West, you've got Anaheim, Chicago, and Seattle. And then in the East, you have the Rangers, Boston, Philadelphia, and now the Pittsburgh. And you add in, and we'll get to it in a sec, the uncertainty because there's a new GM coming in Long Island, and there's a Rick Tocchet decision coming in Vancouver. So could be upwards of 9 potential openings. That.
What happens if the Tampa Bay Lightning lose in round 1? Do John Cooper and the Lightning part ways?
Oh.
The second longest tenured guy in the game is now off the board, and Mike Sullivan. I think there's been lots of whispers. Is this the end for John Cooper? And again, on a mutual basis.
Yeah, I could see it. It's coaching. You don't see coaches last like a decade very often, right?
Are you kidding? Do you know that the average NHL head coaching tenure is 2.3 years?
Oh, yeah.
That's the math. So to think that John Cooper has won 2 Stanley Cups and is closing in on 1,000 regular season games, all with the same team, that's an incredible number. So I'm, again, not predicting it, just saying that chatter has been out there much in the same way that Mike Sullivan, hey, will the hometown Boston Bruins come calling? Will the New York Rangers, where he spent time as an assistant under John Tortorella, will either one of those be a fit? I think a lot of people are wondering, and I've gotten messages from NHL GMs this morning saying, so does Mike Sullivan go to the Rangers today or tomorrow? Like, how long does it take?
Yeah, well, you look at it. So John Cooper's at 961 regular season games. Crazy. He's been there since March of 2013. Now Sullivan's out. So that leaves Jared Bednar second at 700 games. Rod Brind'Amour, 534. And then currently fourth is Marty St. Louis at 283. So
I heard a crazy Rod Brind'Amour stat while watching the Canes Devils game. Yes, I'm one of the 5 people on planet Earth to have watched that series. Rod Brind'Amour can become the first coach in NHL history to lead his team to a playoff round win in 7 consecutive years, all with the same team. No one's ever done that before. No one's done 7 in a row with the same team win at least one round.
Yeah, winning in the opening round, basically 7 consecutive seasons, right?
It's not easy to do because a lot of teams don't make the playoffs 7 consecutive seasons, let alone win a round.
Let them win a round. So it's good. Hey, that's a series I think we expected them to win. But let's go back now because there was a name, and we know the Blackhawks were pushing heavily for David Carl, Frank, but sounds like he has said, no, he's passed. He's not taking Chicago's job. Do you think that means he's not taking any of the other openings?
Man, that's what I tried to drill down on all weekend is, does saying no to Chicago mean I'm staying at Denver? And haven't gotten an unequivocal yes on that. I was told that the timing just wasn't right for David Carl. They've recently welcomed their third child into their family. I think he's got 3 kids under 5, and could have a job for life, as we've talked about at Denver. He makes really good money, and that's his alma mater. He's already been there for 17 years since he arrived on campus. It's a special place. So for him to give that up after, again, advancing to another Final Four, I think a difficult spot. And it was always going to be a reach to try and get him. But I'm wondering, does one of these other teams that's in the mix, is it Anaheim? Is it what about Kyle Dubas and the Penguins now? On an intellectual basis, can Kyle, I look at that roster and say, this doesn't make any sense to me why David Carl would leave for that. But on an intellectual basis, can Kyle Dubas and David Carl be aligned on their thought processes moving forward? I think a fair question to ask, but I think that Penguins opening is as fascinating as any. That does someone come in there and breathe new life into this group and send it on a different direction?
Potentially, but man, if I'm coming to the NHL and my first coaching gig is going to be in a team that I think we all see is near, obviously you have Sidney Crosby, and think what people forget, the Penguins missed the playoffs, Frank, and Sidney Crosby was top 5 in 5-on-5 scoring. Like even with Crosby playing great 2 years in a row here, they haven't made the playoffs. And he's not getting younger. Now, he could still contribute. Heck, Corey Perry, who wasn't Sidney Crosby at his peak, is still contributing at age 39. So I have no doubt that Crosby can still be good, but they're not a good team. You come in as a young coach, and I get there's only 32 jobs, but if you have a very secure job in college in Denver, why would you leave to go to Pittsburgh where there's massive uncertainty and the odds of that team being successful past Sidney Crosby are like 0?
You'd have to be a massive believer in Kyle Dubas and his talents as a manager, which I don't know why, if you're looking at his track record, that would be the case, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Rick Tocchet, we had the press conference with the the Canucks last week, and Jim Rutherford said, hey, we'd like an answer by the end of this week. Well, Monday's technically Sunday's the first day of the week. And it's a new week, Frank. Are you surprised still that there's no announcement? And is the longer it goes better for the Canucks or worse?
I guess it depends on what you think the best outcome is for the Canucks.
Well, re-signing Tocchet, I would say.
I would say that the longer it goes, the worse it is. I would think that by the end of last week, if Jim Rutherford was hoping for an answer, he got one. That I believe, let me say it this way. The biggest question I have is, if you read through everything that the Canucks have said publicly and everything that they've said privately, they want Rick Tocchet back. Quinn Hughes has been a huge vocal supporter, and Rick Tocchet has put the best Vancouver Canucks foot forward that we've seen in the last 15 years.
Yes.
So why isn't it done?
I don't know.
That would lend me to believe, and the speculation would be then, that the Vancouver Canucks haven't done enough to retain his services. I can't say it any more clearly than that. If you want it, you can't sit back and go, we want an answer, and then not put the goods on the table that get it across the finish line. And if so, if you've done that, or you feel like you've done your best of what you can do, then you already got your answer late last week. So either the terms are changing or they're not. And at that point, let's see what happens.
Well, it's kind of fascinating to me. Like, there's lots of people thinking Rick Tocchet's going to go to the Rangers, and because they love experienced coaches, and he's got a big personality. Obviously, there's connection to the Flyers for a long time because he's a natural with how Philly plays, and is an
add him to the list for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like, longtime Penguins assistant, won Stanley Cups there as an assistant and as a player. His family lives there. Like, all those things. Like, there's a lot of Pittsburgh connections too.
There is. It's funny. Like, if we ranked the 7 openings in order of most attractive to least attractive.
Okay, this is a really fun exercise, and I actually think we should take this from start to finish.
Okay. Yeah.
So what would be the first least attractive job for you?
Okay, so least attractive?
Yes.
Seattle.
Agreed. I think Seattle's going nowhere fast.
And like, they don't have Crosby. Like, there's not there's a few years away. And unfortunately, so far, Frank, the organization has had a history since they've come in the league of being extremely tentative. So and I know they went on and got Brandon Montour last year. Okay. And Stevenson, we can argue if they overpaid. But when you look at drafting, trading, lots of their things, I don't know. I don't love Seattle just yet. Like, Pittsburgh still has Crosby, so automatically they're ahead for me. But I would have Seattle at number 7.
Okay. I'm going to throw in my next least attractive team would be the Islanders. I'm just assuming that Patrick Waugh is going to be moving on one way or the other, because I don't know how you can bring back a coach that's so openly questioned the general manager and think that you're going to step into that role and that he's just going to stop coming at you publicly. Now, that's the public side that we've seen from Patrick Waugh. What about the private side? If he's saying that in front of a microphone, and this is a guy who had earned a reputation in Colorado as wanting the power and control, if he's doing that publicly, what's he doing behind the scenes?
It's a fair question.
So I'm just assuming he's out. So I'm going to go. So if we got Kraken 8.
Is Vancouver in too then? Are we going 9 teams?
Well, so then, yes, let's assume that Rick Tocchet is moving on based on the criteria that I just laid out. So we'll go Kraken 9. I got Islanders 8.
Yeah, okay. It's hard for me to argue when I look at the other teams. Yeah, they'd be 8.
Okay. Who's 7?
Now this is where we'll probably have some different opinions. I'm gonna put Pittsburgh at 7.
Okay. I could see that. I understand, and I'll probably agree. I just think if we're talking about teams that could eventually be on the upswing, they haven't gotten to the bottom yet, in my opinion. And there's more pain to come. So I think as tough as it's been, it's only going to get worse. And for those reasons, like, I think in some, not even you have to like, I'll just leave it at that. For those reasons, we'll,
okay. So now we got 6 left. So who do you have at 6?
I've got the Flyers. I just think the Flyers don't have any positional boxes checked. They've got some really interesting players, Michkov, Bump, and love what we've seen from Bump and his confidence. I mean, I guess you could get excited about some of the other guys, Bonk and others, but they don't have a goalie. They don't have a franchise defenseman, and they don't have a franchise center. And I think whoever is taking over this Flyers job, it's going to be 3 years and out, and you're very unlikely to experience any playoffs or success. And by then, at that point in their build, they're going to be looking for the next guy to take them to the next level, which is why if I'm the Flyers, like, I'd be advocating to don't go wild paying a coach on this cycle. Like, if you can get one, I guess, great, and see if you can keep him in long term, and maybe. But like, I would be promoting Ian LaPerriere from the AHL Phantoms, who, by the way, the Flyers have had a pretty good track record of bringing up coaches from their minor league system. Craig Berube being another really good example. Don't go wild. You're not there yet. So you don't need to pay your coach $5 million a year to get sick of him.
Yeah, that's fair. I like some of the guy, like I think Luchenko is going to be a player. Now, he's not going to be a dominant player by any stretch. They got some player. The one thing they do have is they just need one of their young goalies, Frank, to pan out. Now, I agree with you. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think there's some potential there because hey, we can get into the goalie position a little bit later on here because I think what we're seeing in the playoff shows it's like what like Sam Ersson has some stretches where you think, hey, you know what, this guy's showing a little bit of what he can do. So I think
could be what? Like, what do you think? Like,
well, not necessarily a top guy, but look, even if you have a top guy, Frank, and we'll get into it, even if you have a top guy, that doesn't guarantee playoff success is what we're seeing. Like, it's wild. Environment matters a lot. So
yes,
I think it's more they got to improve their defense, but I would agree I'd have them 6. Fifth for me is going to be Vancouver because they're right in the middle. I think there's lots of dysfunction from the ownership, and I think that causes a lot of challenges. And I think it's the main reason why we haven't seen a Rick Tocchet extension yet is simply because of all of the extra drama that comes right now with the ownership. Now you've got Quinn Hughes, so you got an elite player. And when you have an elite player, you got a chance. There's no doubt, especially a defenseman who plays that many minutes and can play that many minutes. So that helps you. But I have them 5.
I got the Ducks next. I think the Ducks have a long way to go. I think they've got some really nice pieces. I don't know outside of Leo Carlsson how many are truly, truly elite. Maybe Dostal falls into that category with the season that he's had. So, okay, so you've got 2 of the boxes checked. It's like, I think Vancouver gets more points. Yeah, the dysfunction is obviously real. And that's another reason why I think they should have been way more proactive in trying to get Rick Tocchet done and signed is to try and reduce the volume and chaos that surrounds your team. But Quinn Hughes, to me, like he's so good and so elite, an MVP heart level player that I think he just kind of takes that they're the next rung up for me. So I'm going to go I'm going to go Ducks in that spot. I think Pat Verbeek has made a lot of smart decisions behind the scenes, but I really, really wonder what it would be like to work for him as a guy who I think struggles to communicate.
The thing I like about the Ducks, don't sleep on Jackson Lacombe, man. I think that guy's a hell of a defender. And I think, you got him. I like what McTavish brings. They've got the thing I like about their makeup, Cutter Gauthier, Mason McTavish. They got a little bit of different skill set in guys. You're right. They don't have a high-end offensive guy yet. Leo Carlsson might become that. Like, he's still super young. And so I think the Ducks have lots of pieces, but they have Dostal, and I think that helps. I like their defense. They're really young, and you don't win with all young, but in 2 or 3 years. So that's why I kind of the reason I'm picking the Ducks is more, I think their trajectory is you can come in as a coach and you're kind of stepping in as the escalators on the way up. And I like that as a coach.
So where would you have the Ducks?
Well,
so you went Canucks.
I have Canucks. I actually have the Bruins 4th, and I'd have the Ducks 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah, because Boston, like, hey, you got David Pastrnak, right? I think Jeremy Swayman can bounce back a lot in Boston. But like, still, like, where's their center iceman? Right?
Where do you have the Flyers?
Position. I have the Flyers. Yeah, where you had the Flyers, they were 6th, right?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would put the Canucks that next rung up from the Ducks, and then we get down to our final 3.
So you have Boston. And because I'd have the Ducks 3rd, but you have Boston, Chicago, and the Rangers. Who do you have 1, 2, 3?
I'm gonna go Boston 3, Chicago 2, and Rangers 1.
Yeah, I would agree about the top 2. I like the Ducks better than Boston moving forward. Now, not necessarily next year.
You're willing to agree with me and go Blackhawks too, because you've sort of been down on, like you said the other day, last week's pod, that 2028 is a reasonable target for playoffs.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I might put the Ducks. Actually, I would. Well, the thing is, the Ducks are in the West, Frank, and I'm not sure. Like, there's not a lot of like. Yeah, I know, but it's hard right now. It's harder, I think, to going to make the playoffs in the next few years. Like, I don't like. You look at the 8 playoff teams in the West, and How many of them are even on an escalator going down right now? Any of them? Like, will you look and say, geez, I think this might be their last year? That's the challenge.
I
But
don't know how far away we are from that conversation with the Kings, to be honest. Like, when they don't have Kopitar, where's that team going to go? When they don't have Doughty, where's that team going to go?
Yeah, it's fair.
Will you get the same goaltending again from Kemper?
Yeah, I just think they're at least 2 years. You know what? I'll put Anaheim second over Chicago. Just because I think Chicago's farther away. I know they got Bedard and they got some other young pieces, but their young pieces are highly touted, like Anaheim's young pieces were highly touted 2 years ago. And not every highly touted young guy comes in right away and has massive success.
Yeah, I think the Bruins, though, is a more attractive position than we're probably giving them credit for in this ranking. Like, let me go back to my subscribed positional boxes like that you're checking.
McAvoy.
You're thinking Swayman, McAvoy, Pasternak. The big thing missing is a center. But how many other teams, if you don't have the center, have one of the true play driving wingers of the game? Not many. No. So I also think that they have found ways in the past to reinvent themselves a bit and do it quicker, sooner rather than later. I think they've got an opportunity to reboot and be a playoff team next year.
Well, yeah, if we were looking at quickest turnarounds, yes, I would have them ahead if we're looking at quick. But
quick, well, wouldn't
I think they can turn around, Frank, and I think they can make the playoffs. I don't know if I consider Boston like Anaheim will have enough pieces where he gets in a few years with the coach if he's there and he's given enough time. And you mentioned Verbeek, we don't have the answer to that, but given enough time, I think you'd have an opportunity to win a few. Boston can get in, but unless you think Florida and Toronto and Tampa, because they're in a tough division, are really like near the end, I think it's hard for Boston. They might get in, but are they 5 games and done? 6 games and done?
So who's the quicker turnaround, Bruins or Rangers?
Oh, the Rangers for me. Like the Rangers are my top of the list of disappointment teams. Number one. Now I think having JT Miller full season there is definitely going to help them. You got Shesterkin and he's still really good. I do think their defense, funny enough, in New York is an area where 2 years ago we raved about their defense. And now you're like, God, they got to get a little bit quicker on their back end for sure. And probably even a little bit more size, and you got Panarin. You've got enough offensive guys. JT Miller's a hell of a player. So I think, if you ask me today, regardless of what happens in free agency, I'd pick the Rangers to be a playoff team next year.
Next season.
Yeah.
I just think I don't care who their next coach is, they need to retool their defense.
100%.
You said it. But until that happens, it could be Toe Blake, Gerard Gallant, Peter Laviolette, Mike Sullivan. Pick a guy. It doesn't matter. They have to defend better. And it's not a system thing. It's a personnel thing. And that's the other thing that stands out about Mike Sullivan is like, go back to Four Nations face-off. One of the first players that got stapled to the bench was Adam Fox. What does that say about how he views the Rangers and their defense moving forward?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Fox, Frank, because his mobility to me, now at Four Nations, we're talking best of the best. And his mobility at Four Nations, especially when you compare it to the other American defensemen. Now, I know Fox thinks the game very well, and that's always helped him. But if he, I don't know, maybe he's nicked up. I don't know. Maybe he's just tired for a bit. But he's got to get a bit quicker, or they're going to have to get him a D partner that's a really good skater.
Okay, so let me phrase this question in another way then. If you're Mike Sullivan and both places are offering the same dough, are you picking Boston or New York? Knowing that you're from Boston, your son-in-law plays on the team. Yeah. Well, you say that, and I know that's going to become a story at some point, but we've had multiple dads coach their sons. You can definitely coach your son-in-law. It's a fact.
Yeah, sure you could.
So, and you also have the history of that was your first head coaching gig and it didn't go well. I'm sure you have some unfinished business that you'd like to see through. Which one are you picking?
Yeah, that's the great question of, so you have a home there, but I wonder if he looks and says, been there, done that. Yeah, I'd love another opportunity for sure. But there is something appealing about the Big Apple, man. And it's New York, and they got Shesterkin. I got Swayman. Well, I like Shesterkin better, right? I now Pasternak, I'd probably still take him over Panarin if push comes to shove for me. So that kind of evens out the top guys. But I like JT Miller. There's just no. I think JT Miller can help you as a coach. Rick Tocchet loved JT Miller. That's the thing. He loved him, and
also drove him crazy.
Yeah, because he can be. You know what? So I think it would be the Rangers still for me.
Yeah, I'd probably agree, but there's no place like home.
No, that's
the Wizard of Oz said that.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Like the comfort thing. We go back to Carl. If you're a young father and you're making basically the same amount of money, Frank, you're not traveling for 40 road games a year, right? You're traveling for 18, and usually it's twice on the weekend when you go on a road trip. So you're way less travel. You're away from your family way less. There's not as much stress and focus on you. You can live a great life.
Not much volatility. That's the biggest thing is that you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So I could see how some people say, yeah, but you want to challenge yourself, best of the best. Okay. When it's the right time. And if you have young family, the one thing you learn as a father that guess what? You don't get time back. Once it's gone, it's gone. And, you miss certain things. And I know that in certain occupations out there, that's just part of the job. Doesn't matter if you're in the media. It doesn't matter if you're working in the oil field, if you're a doctor, whatever you're doing, there are times when you're going to have to sacrifice family time. It's how it is. But if you can make similar money, Frank, and have way more family time, I can see why that becomes more attractive.
Yeah, I guess that in the end, given where we both saw the Blackhawks in this ranking of 9 teams, I'm a little bit surprised that this wasn't the place. Original 6 franchise, potential of some really good players, and a build on the way that they're on the upswing. And obviously the major life-changing financials that come with it. I am definitely surprised that.
Did he get everything he wanted, do you think, as far as being able to work and because that's a big ask. That's the other way. It's hard to come in as a rookie head coach and have a list of, I want it to be where we work step and step. And, some NHL coaches hey, it's nice to want it. Doesn't mean you'll get it.
No, I have zero doubt that that's exactly the path that Kyle Davidson wanted.
Now, do you think Kyle Davidson's long for Chicago?
I do. I mean, I think look at what he's assembled. That should be a given the talent that's there now. And look, I think in the same way, I thought that was a really poorly answered question from Cam Neely in Boston. Either you're deciding today that Don Sweeney is your guy or you're not. And if you have any doubt, then don't let this guy be the man at the controls for the next year, making a few $100 million worth of decisions that might make it more difficult to change in the end.
Well, and that's another reason, Frank, why Boston, maybe there's more uncertainty. The Ranger GM just got an extension. So if you're the coach,
dude,
if you
you're working for Jim Dolan, you're not signing up for any more security. I'm sorry. It just doesn't it doesn't exist.
But you know how it is. If you come in as a coach and the guy who hired you gets fired, your job security is a little less. Is it not in any team?
Jim Dolan could wake up on the wrong side of the bed and fire his coach into the sun. So it happens on the regular.
What about Rick Tocchet? Where's he going? Is he going to? Is there a chance he stays in Vancouver?
There's definitely a chance. I think it's a much smaller chance than it was a month ago.
Man, that's a massive, that would be such a crazy 12 months for the Canucks. You go from a really good year last year. I was excited, 109 points. You get to the second round. You're yeah, we lost in 7, but man, we didn't have our starting goaltender. We didn't have our second goalie. You know what? We got a lot of arrows up. And then this season just, crash and burn. And
for all the reasons you just said, why didn't they get it done last week then?
Fair point. Well, maybe he takes time. And who knows, maybe he has said, hey, I got some questions that you guys need to answer. I'll give you a few days to answer. Because I really think the big one, when the people I've talked to that are infinitely closer to it than I am about Vancouver and the questions he has is just the internal dysfunction, Frank. And is that solvable?
I think the finances are part of this. And when I say that, it's only part of it. There are many other questions, including the direction of the team, how it's run, who is the shot caller. All those things are very important in any decision. It's not just, I want to be in the top 3 highest paid coaches in the league. That's not what's driving Rick Tocchet, because in the end, just like Mike Sullivan, the money's mostly going to be the same anywhere else. And if you don't want any of those jobs, you can just go back to making 7 figures at TNT, working 1 day a week.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, there's no wrong answer.
Yeah. Well, Mike Sullivan, wasn't he making like $5.5 million or something like that? Like, he had a big ticket.
I saw the reporting on that. I think I was told very recently that there was only one coach in the NHL making north of 5, and that everyone else was between 4
Is
and
that John
4.9.
Cooper?
I think it is.
Okay. Well, we'll get to the playoffs, but first, let's bring in Tyler for fill in the blank.
Let's go, boys. I'm ready to rock. New edition of Fill in the Blank, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Bet365, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they've got you from game props, player props, totals, and money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, and the Stanley Cup champions. Whatever you bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs, must be 19 or older. Let's start with this one, because I really think there's a bunch of different ways you could go, from past performance, current performance, injuries, but the team whose goaltending should have them feeling the most uneasy right now is blank. Greggs, I'm going to you first.
Oh, God.
Just say it. Just say it. We all know what the answer is here.
Yeah, well, buddy, I watched that game yesterday in St. Louis, and it was stunning to me to see how passive Connor Hellebuck looked. Like, that Robert Thomas goal, I don't know if he could have, I mean, he might as well have just backed into the net. So it's crazy, because like Winnipeg, for the second straight year, you lead the league in goals against, and now you're getting lit up again with the guy who should probably win the Vezina based on all his numbers. Now, Kevin Woodley was very accurate to point out that Winnipeg had the best environment for a goalie in the regular season. And he's talked a lot, and he's a goalie guy. He knows the position infinitely better than I do, and how environment matters. Well, look, and what are they doing for the second straight year? A lot of goals on screens, a little bit lucky. The one goes off of Pionk, but man, it's hard not to go with the Jets, because you got the best goalie, and he's looking below average right now.
When I grow up, I just want Jason Gregor to like me as much as he likes Kevin Woodley, because
I learn lots from him.
I know you talk about him all the time, and I say that in like a truly endearing way. Like, I wish you liked me as much, or half as much. The clear and obvious correct
information.
The clear and obvious correct answer here is the Edmonton Oilers. It's impossible to feel good about either guy. The Oilers have gotten the wheels beaten off of them in all 4 of these games, have controlled maybe 15 to 20% of the entire series. And it's because they cannot keep a puck out of their net. And you could say, till we're blue in the face, that it's because of the way that they defend. Fine. You are allowed to make a save. I repeat, you are allowed to make a save and bail your team out. And neither one of both guys are capable of doing it.
So, but here's the thing, Frank. So you're saying that LA's outplayed them much of the series, and they've got a guy who's a Vezina Trophy winner, but he's getting lit up. So how do the guys who are below average all year, but they're still in the turn? Because hey, Pickard allowed what, 3 goals on 40 plus shots?
Let's go back to what the original question was, which was, Can you repeat it, Tyler?
The team whose goaltending should have them feeling the most uneasy is blank.
Okay, so I don't care at the end of the day, like answering Connor Hellebuck, and I know that he has an .817 save percentage. I'm taking Connor Hellebuck before, even with his playoff numbers, before any guy in this Edmonton LA series.
But here's the difference. Edmonton's team is not built on relying on their goalie to be very good. They're not built that way. Winnipeg's, one of their major foundations of their team is we got an elite goalie and we expect them to be elite. Edmonton's like, God, if we can just get average goaltending, we're happy.
I'm sorry. You'll never get me to agree on this one.
Uh,
The
Like, 'cause, hey,
Oilers are
who do
the
I
worst.
think has a more questionable goal? Like, who has less talented goalies? Of course, it's Edmonton. Like, there's no debate on that. But you look at the numbers, and you go with like the expected goals numbers, everything. Like Kemper, Pickard, Skinner, and Hellebuck are all right there, almost even. Hellebuck actually has the worst, and you're like, you got two, so which ones don't belong? Number one, number two, Vezina. The other guys who are near the bottom, yet everybody's concerned. Because here's the reason why, Frank, I'm not concerned. Because one team has two guys with 9 points. And they got, so even if Edmonton's goaltenders allow
That's
three
not what the
goaltenders-
question is. It's not which team has better forwards. Who should feel the worst about their goaltending situation right now? The answer is unequivocally the Edmonton Oilers.
Because guess, Frank, the reason I don't feel concerned about the goaltending as much is because Edmonton can outscore their goaltending problems.
That's not what the question is.
But it kind of is, Frank.
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
Take it either way.
Yeah,
That's
because if you
really
look and say, I'm concerned about my goaltending, but I'm not as concerned because I think we can win with average goaltending. The Jets clearly can't win with below average goaltending.
That's an interesting way to take the question, though, because it's like feeling uneasy about your goaltending, Frank. You're taking it as a very like, look at the goalie. Okay, do I feel good about the quality of this goalie? Gregor is taking it more from like okay, how do I feel about my goaltender's chances of costing me this series? And in Winnipeg, I think you sit there and go, oh shit, his save percentage is 31 points worse than the second worst goalie.
All right, here I'll frame this another way. See if this rings true. I'm gonna take you to my senior summer house as an 18-year-old. Okay, and we used to play this game super late at night with a warm bottle of Jose Cuervo Gold, which makes my stomach turn just thinking about it. And we would get out a cap gun and we would just like knock a few of the, caps out of the arsenal. And we would literally sit there and spin it and play Russian roulette. And if you got killed, then you had to take a shot of warm Jose Cuervo Gold. Anyway, interesting way to live a life. Nonetheless, that is exactly how I would feel today if I was Chris Knobloch having to make a decision of who to start in Game 5 between Cal Pickard and Stuart Skinner. Can I say that in any more clear and direct terms?
Yeah.
I think you're both making very good points. This is on the Mount Rushmore of my fill in the blank or buy or sell questions, because I think you both just took it in like a really interesting way. Like there is kind of two ways to view the question. So it's interesting. I don't know. Connor Hellebuck's playing like he's taken too much Jose Cuervo. So there's also that.
It is wild to me to see like which goalie is playing way below the standards. It's not even a discussion. And I don't like think about great players in the game who have performed this poorly at their position for now 3 years in a row in the playoffs. And I know it's a small sample. It's only 14 games, but isn't it wild though? Like I can't find an answer. It shows you how advanced scouting and how the playoffs are different when it's a one-on-one matchup. Because look, did you see the number of point shots, the difference in games 1 and 2? St. Louis in the first 2 games, I think their defense had a total of 26 shots on goal. In games 3 and 4, their defense had 50. They've completely changed where they're shooting from. And they're like, we're just going to crash the net. And Hellebuck doesn't see the puck. And it's working.
Okay.
Like they're shooting from distance, guys. Normally you don't want to shoot from distance.
One of those games, any one of these games, Connor Hellebuck has the ability to turn it on and get to a level that Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard can only dream of.
Yeah.
Like it is entirely possible that like he just like turns his right foot the wrong way and like it snaps him back into like, oh my God, I'm a Vezina candidate.
Well, here's the difference.
Vezina winner, multi-time Vezina winner, and the best goalie of my generation.
Now, what's funny, Frank, though, is look at the environment. Because you say, oh, Edmonton's goalies are bad. Stuart Skinner didn't really allow a bad goal. He got lit up because the Oilers get the LA Kings. Hey, Adrian Kempe, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Oh, now we'll try to check you. Go look. The one game Hellebuck played well with numbers was the game where Winnipeg gave up 4 high danger chances. That's it. 4.
3 goals on 10 shots to start the series. Then periods 2 and 3, as well as periods 4, 5, and 6.
But he only faced 7 shots in those 2 periods, man.
Okay, but so that is 5 periods so far out of the 12 that they've played where he's been really good. You cannot say that about Stuart Skinner or Cal Pickard so far.
Whoa, how many out of the 12 periods has
5
Hellebuyck
of the 12 periods.
But but if you get 7 shots on goal in 2 of those periods combined, are you really good?
God. You can't say that any one of Skinner or Pickard have had any good moment in this entire series.
What are you talking about? Dude, if you're going to say that the second and third period of game 1 for Winnipeg, how the hell is Calvin Pickard's third period in overtime where it doesn't allow a goal any worse than that? Come on.
Any worse? He didn't let in any.
That's my point. Neither did Pickard.
Okay. All right. We should probably just move on to another
Well,
one.
so
We're never going to agree.
My first fill in the blank question clocks in at 10 minutes and 10 seconds, boys. So maybe we'll speed it up a little bit here. A little palate cleanser for you. I want your take on this. I'm sure this will be quick. Tom Wilson versus Josh Anderson at the end of the second period on Friday night was blank, Frank.
Was bananas. I mean, honestly, it would be so fun to have referees or officials be able to talk, because I would love like an oral history of this skirmish from Kyle Flemington, the linesman's perspective, because my man was taken for a ride on that bench. Like he literally went from one end to the other and was like smashed against the partition at one point, and has 2 guys that are very, very large individuals wailing on each other, and you're dealing with some obstacles in the way and some danger because you can get hurt tussling on a bench. That was unbelievable. Like in a different time, in a different situation, yeah, it would have been different. But that was,
dude, in a different era, they're throwing punches. In this era, you're wrestling because you don't want to get suspended, right? They're both pretty important players to their team. And to me, the whole thing was kind of unique. You see the head coach of the Caps, he's down on the level. They start coming through the door just casually, like, no big deal. It's my two boys wrestling. I'm just going to step back on the bench. This is good. I actually, it looked craziness, but I thought they were quite controlled because neither one of them did anything to get themselves suspended. Neither one did anything that was remotely cheap. There was like a healthy respect of anger. Like, yeah, we're going to wrestle, but God, I want to play. And to me, it was great theater, but I actually thought it was quite controlled and that they didn't cross the line to get suspended. Like they did, because really they walked into the gate. Like, what are you going to do at that point? You know, you're not going to stop. So I thought they were pretty controlled.
Another angle, if you want to have fun and go back and watch the video, there's a trainer from the Montreal Canadiens who's on the other side of the partition. He's standing there like one of the guards outside of Buckingham Palace. He never even looks to the right at the absolute shit show that's going on. He doesn't even look at it, just staring straight out into the center ice. Unbelievable.
All right. Next one I got for you guys. I know you've probably spent a lot of time here talking about the Oilers with the goaltending, but the Jim Hiller challenge on Friday with 6 minutes to go was blank, Greg's.
Wow. That might be series altering. Seriously. And we say Jim Hiller, they call the timeout, but usually it's your video coach, right? Like those guys have a lot of power in that. And the coach trusts them. And I watched, now I was at the game. So the replay, and but then I watched it later when I got home and I'm like, what were they calling? Like there was nothing. Like sometimes you'll see it, and we've debated. I've sat beside Frank in playoff games and Ty, and you're like, well, I think this, and geez, I can see that. I watched that replay 2 times. I'm like, there's nothing here for goalie interference. Like nothing. That was the most.
What is Kemper doing, by the way? Honestly, like what exactly is he doing?
Well, dude, you know what he looks like there? Anybody who likes to stretch their back out, he's doing like the scorpion, right? You got your laying on your stomach, your elbows bent, you're trying to bring your leg over. I don't know. He
looks like someone at the cabaret after the 3rd song. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
What's he doing?
He rolled over, tried to make a save, but to me, I'm like, why are you challenging that?
For the tip, man.
That was mind blowing, man. Why you're challenging that play? Because there was nothing there to be challenged. It's clear goal.
Okay, so my fill in the blank is that is one of the worst coaching decisions in the salary cap era.
Ooh.
It is. I would need to have 100%. You had a timeout. You had the benefit of an entire timeout to work through it, and I would need 100% certainty, meaning there's zero chance that we are losing this because I'm not risking the momentum swing on the other end of it. You're tied, fine. Live to see another day. You gave up the goal, play for OT if that's what you need. But to give up the power play to one of the most vaunted power plays in the league's history, I'm sorry. I'm not allowing Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to decide what happens next.
And the thing is, guys, what were they challenging? Like, were they saying that Kane pushed him in the net? Like, he didn't even move when he's throwing. Like, he didn't hit him. Kane was outside the crease, and then the puck came in. Like, I don't even understand what part of goalie interference they thought was interference.
Yeah. Just over looking at Bet365, the series odds, all 4 series in the West are tied at 2, but only one of them is being priced as a true pick'em where it's -110 on each side. It's Edmonton and LA. The Avs are big favorites. The Jets are big favorites, both at -180, and the Golden Knights are all the way at -260 in their series against the Minnesota Wild. Yeah, which is pretty interesting. But there you go, boys. Those are the updated odds, and that's a wrap on a very interesting edition of Fill in the Blank, brought to you by Bet365.
You know what that tells me with the odds? That the Oilers have incredible value. They have zero business being in this series. At some point, you would think that they're going to string together a good game or two that's going to put this Kings team away. Los Angeles opened the door. This should have been 3-1 heading back to LA, and you could make the argument it should have been a sweep.
Well, this is a prime example that defense doesn't win championships, because the Kings are they get a lead and then they just sit back in the third period continually. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. And now they're playing basically, Frank, like 4 defensemen last game. Like Brandt Clark played just over 11 minutes in the game, but you got all your 4 defensemen, the other one's playing over 30 plus minutes. And, you've had 2 games now where you've dressed a defenseman that's played less than 5 minutes. And I wonder if, as you always talk about, you hit guys early in the series, Frank, so you wear them down by game 6 or 7. And I wonder if that's the case. They're basically playing 3 forward lines. And the thing about the Oilers is, you're right. Like, if they could ever remove Santa Claus from their game, I'm not sure they can, but if they ever can consistently, then they'll be fine, because they'll give up nothing. And then when they do give up something, it's just like a 10-beller. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but they're bound to, like, by the virtue of how these 4 games have played out to this point, they're bound to have a much cleaner game at some point.
Oh,
they just are.
Yeah. And they've had actually their depth scores have all chipped in. Last game was really the only game, and that's the advantage Edmonton has, is they have 2 players who can take over the game. So Draisaitl, that's his 8th. Here's some numbers for you, Frank, on Draisaitl. That was his 8th 4-point game of his career in the playoffs, 4+ points, which ties him with Mario Lemieux for 5th most. Lemieux played 107 playoff games. Draisaitl's played 78. So Coffey had 9 of them. He played 194 games. Curry had 11. He played 200. Messier had 11. He played 236. And then there's obviously Gretzky's in a different category. He had 21 and 208. Leon Draisaitl continually will take over games in the playoffs for you. And then there's that other guy, 97, who's already had a 4-point game in the series. So I look at LA, and do you think LA can keep up by only playing 4 defensemen?
I think they can. I think they're going to have to. What's their alternative?
Well, yeah, no, fair point. Like, I didn't think Jordan Spence is that bad of a defender. I'm kind of surprised. Like, Jordan Spence played a lot of minutes all year long, and now he's playing none. Mm-hmm. That's the one that's a little surprising to me, right? Like,
speaking of minutes, Corey Perry, 20 minutes, season high, not career high, but season high.
Yeah,
for the old man, the worm.
Well, he's a great example, Frank, that in today's game, everybody talks about you got to be a great skater. You got to be a great skater. And that's true. But hockey sense and thinking the game, like Leon Draisaitl, his post-game press conference raving about Perry and just how smart he is and what he does on the ice and how he thinks and does. He can play on the 4th line where you crash and bang. And then he's smart enough to play with 2 elite players and how to read off guys and find openings. Like, and he even joked, he goes, I think he could play until 50. He goes, I'm not sure about the boots though, like giving him a little bit of a chirp, that his ability to think the game in different situations allows him to be successful.
it's one thing to think, but it's the other part that you didn't mention is the compete.
Oh yeah, he's highly
You
competitive.
have to have it's a non-negotiable, and so many guys get to that point and they just don't have either the wherewithal or the drive to do it.
Now, hey, I want to get back to the Montreal series. The Tom Wilson hit, like clean hit, by the way, super hard carrier. Man, he got rocked. Like that's a hard hit, and he's got to go off the ice. What about the Canadians, the goalie? Well, they should call the play there. What are you talking about?
Silly.
He's skating off of the ice.
If you're up and moving, there's zero chance that they're
and the other team, even if you're down on the ice, Frank, if
they had the puck in their own zone, they were regrouping. It was not a nonsensical comment. It honestly, I'm not knocking him. It showed a guy's experience that has played 18 total NHL games.
Yeah.
That's it.
Hey, what about Logan Thompson after you saw him leave game 3? Like on the scale of shocked, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It was unreal.
Honestly, I think that had the ability. You mentioned the Hiller decision and series changing. If Thompson didn't play, based on how poorly Charlie Lindgren did play in the stretch down the stretch, 870 in the month of April, filling in for Thompson, I think that had the ability to be series changing and flip that series on its head. And it nearly kind of was, like, not necessarily the goaltending, but the Canadians had a 3-2 third period lead that they're a chance away from squaring this series up. And all of a sudden we're asking so many questions about the Caps, but I think the Caps deserve a ton of credit for the way that they hung in there. That's the marking of a team that has a core that's won a Stanley Cup. No panic. They were fine. And the other takeaway I have is just how much everyone in the Eastern Conference should be afraid of that homegrown Montreal power play. You've got, just think about the way this sets up. Demidov, a true dangler on one flank, moving it over across seam to a true sniper in Cole Caulfield. At the top, quarterbacking it all is Lane Hudson, who can change angles and is very deceptive and skates incredibly well with great edge work. Then at the net front presence, you've got big body Uri Slavkovsky. And in the middle, in the bumper, you've got one of the best big brain players in the NHL in Nick Suzuki. That is a scary, scary unit moving forward.
Oh, God. And then the one guy who
their average age.
Yeah, and the power play specialist, because he doesn't do much else, but he's still really good on the power play, is Laine. So you mix him in the mix at times if you're splitting time. Yeah, because I don't know if they're just
much better without him, to be honest. I really do.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, because he's he doesn't do as much. You're right. Like Caulfield moves around more, but hey, the Habs, they should be excited. They're getting some experience for the young players. They're being ultra competitive. You know, obviously not having Montembeault hurts them. There's no question about that. Now, like, you know, Carrier
got a double off day though.
Yeah, do you think Carrier is going to be ready though for Game 5? Like Carrier,
he got sent into next week. I would say the bigger question will be, will they get Montembeault back? Because I just have a feeling that series isn't over yet.
Okay. You look in the Toronto, Ottawa, good for them. They give their fans a home win. If that's their last game of the season at home, it's a great way to go out. Toronto outshot them, outchanced them that game. They're up 3-1. I don't think there's anything to worry about there. Carolina, New Jersey kind of is what we thought it was. I see both those series most likely. There's always a chance, but most likely ending at home, which leaves the other East series, of course, which is Tampa, Florida, Frank. And, there's some bad blood there. I look at the Matthew Tkachuk play is a hard hit and it's late, but that's all it is. It's not a suspension, is it?
No. I look at that. I'm just like, that's a guy playing till the last couple seconds of the game.
Yeah.
A tad late, a touch late, maybe a penalty, definitely not a suspension, and understand why it isn't.
And hey, big win for Tampa. No Brendan Hagel.
Yep.
So that'll be a big boost for them. So that Game 4, man, like I can't wait. That series has been fun to watch. There's lots of animosity. Gensel's playing great. Kucherov is what he is. He's always a huge playoff performer. And, Barkov wasn't hurt, so he came back, and they got Aaron Ekblad in now. So that is a must watch. But
what hasn't been a terribly exciting series from like a watch perspective has been Colorado Dallas.
No,
Like
you're right.
The game has been fine, but like it's really not. There's not a lot of room. There's not all that exciting.
Well, you go to the West, every series is 2-2. So we'll quickly recap those. Colorado, Dallas, Dallas has the injuries. They don't have Robertson. They don't have Heiskanen yet. I'm not sure Robertson's definitely not playing this series, and I haven't heard anything that suggests Heiskanen might. But Dallas came in games 2 and 3, they're full marks pretty well, but then Colorado shuts them out in game 4. What do you like in this best of 3? Do you still favor Colorado?
I do. I just think Colorado fell asleep at the wheel for a bit, and it really cost them.
Yeah, and Dallas just can't score. That's the problem.
Yeah, and look, I think it's going to be a tall task against this Avs team to consistently do it, which is kind of funny to say. Like, even though they're without Robertson, like this Stars lineup should have way more goal scoring ability with the depth that they have.
Oh,
like
dude,
what's the excuse?
Like they got lots of offensive guys. Mikko Rantanen's got 1 assist. Matt Duchene, does he even have a point? I don't think he even has a point in the series. Wyatt Johnson, well, he does have 2 assists, I think, but they got a lot of their big minute offensive guys not producing any offense.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that to me is like Rantanen it's hard to win for any team if your best guys aren't contributing. And so maybe that's the positive for Dallas is somehow they're 2-2 and Rantanen hasn't done anything.
Speaking of Hellebuyck, because we were talking about him earlier, but they just announced the 2025 Vezina finalists: Connor Hellebuyck, Andrei Vasilevsky, and Darcy Kemper.
Yeah, no surprise, right? No surprise at all. And now, just for fun, I'm going to look at. So we got so there's your 3 finalists. So Kemper's got an 881 save percentage, 374 in the playoffs. Hellebuck's 817, 424 in the playoffs, and Vasilevsky's 890, but at least he's got a 270. It's just that first game. But it just shows you, man, like the volatility, uncertainty of that position, and how much I really think the environment in front of your goalie matters.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Vegas, Minnesota, man, that's been a heck of a series. A physical, Vegas, I think Vegas has to be thrilled that they're tied 2-2 where they haven't gotten anything from their top line yet.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a joke to be made about my poor ability to pick a playoff pool team because Jack Eichel, I mean, he finally got on the board with his first point of the series.
Yeah.
I can't believe how sluggish they've been. And maybe that's, to your point, the silver lining for the Golden Knights is that they're squarely in this with those guys off to such a slow start.
And while they are, I got to give a huge shout. Matt Boldy and Kaprizov have been electrifying to watch. Like both of them. Kaprizov's got 8 points, 4 goals. Boldy's got 4 goals. And they've tons of opportunities, man. Like those two have been great. Marcus Foligno's having a good series. But right now, Kaprizov and Boldy, this comes a best of 3. If you had asked me today who I like better, I like Minnesota because their top guys are producing way more.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still pick Vegas, but I understand your point. Their top guys have been on it from puck drop this series.
Yeah. So the Blues and the Jets, is it just it's home ice advantage and the Jets will wake up, or how much concern do you have about the Jets and more so just the body language? Hellebuyck doesn't look like when he's on his game, man, he's just swagger. He's got confidence. And right now he doesn't have much of it.
I think I'm more concerned from a body language perspective about the rest of their team. They looked like they were disinterested in St. Louis. And I don't know how that happens. I mean, they're 1 game away from talking about a sweep.
Yeah.
To start off the trip in St. Louis. We were all thinking this is going to be a short series. And now they didn't compete. They didn't defend. They did next to nothing right. And there was a lot of tips, a lot of deflections, a lot of goals that went in off of their own defensemen. I'm not absolving Hellebuyck by any stretch of the imagination, but the rest of the team didn't show up either.
No, they got outscored. It's not just the goalie. They got outscored 12-3 in those 2 games in St. Louis. like 12-3, man. Like it was the Blues. I still think the Jets will find a way to pull it out, but I'll give the Blues a ton of credit because the seeds of doubt are there. Like St. Louis is coming back, and we know the roller coaster of emotions I don't know if momentum carries over from game to game. I'm not a real big believer it does. Because right now you're like, oh, the Blues got all the momentum, but Winnipeg's going to get back to the whiteout. The whiteout fans are going to be even more rabid than before. And, I could see the Jets turning around, but like the Jets, like the game 2 was like the regular season Jets. The goalie was good.
Oh,
they didn't give up a lot. They controlled the game. But other than that, they haven't been that, like when you're the best defensive team in the league, Frank, and then you give up, that many goals. Like in the other 3 games, they've allowed 15 goals. It's just not good enough.
It's shocking, is what it is.
And then lastly, Edmonton and LA. So who do you like?
On that a lot. Yeah, I like the Oilers. I would think for a lot of reasons that they clean up their game, and I think the Kings are in their own heads now. Like they haven't been able to close out leads. They've coughed up leads in every game, and 97-29, they don't have an answer for. So until they find one, I'm not thinking that there's going to be one.
Well, the crazy part is just the blown leads in the third period by the team that was right there as best defensive team. Like
the Oilers have no business. They had no business making game 1 a game, and they definitely had no business in game 4 making it a game. I mean, just bananas.
Wow. Yeah. Their forwards had a combined 10 shots after 40 minutes, the Oilers. And Corey Perry had 3 of them. So the old dogs played pretty well. Frankie, we'll see. Here's a fun question for you. Will the Canucks before Thursday's pod have an answer for their coach? Yes or no? Is he staying?
I'm going to say they don't. It's not resolved by Thursday.
Ooh. Oh. Interesting. So I guess Rutherford didn't get what he wanted. So we'll see. That's a spirited edition of the Rundown brought to you by Bet365. Enjoy the games. Talk to you Thursday.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.